Good evening. We will be conducting tonight's meeting here in City Council chambers as well as live on the city's YouTube channel and virtually using Zoom. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting on Channel 18. And if you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Pastor Eric Long from the Salt Mine Church will be giving the invocation, and Mayor Carl Skint will begin the meeting immediately afterwards.
Thank you, and it's such an honor to be here and open us up in prayer. So let us pray. Father, we do just thank you for this city. Thank you for the awesome responsibility to lead, to direct, to guide those in our city. And always pray for the wisdom of our leadership and our authorities in this city. Always pray for discernment and courage to do the things that are right and true and correct for our residents. And I also would like to lift up our residents, that there would be unity in diversity, that there would be peace even in the midst of adversity. And we're just so grateful to be be residents of this community, this wonderful city of Lincoln. We ask your blessing on us, a blessing that would be far more than we can ask or even imagine. We just thank you for, again, this privilege of serving in this community. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Thank you. This meeting of the Lincoln City Council, Lincoln Redevelopment Successor Agency, Lincoln Public Financing Authority, order for April 23rd, 2024.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Councilmember Andriotta.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Joyner.
Here.
Councilmember Lauritsen.
Here.
And Mayor Carl Skint.
Here. Next item is report from closed session. We did not not have a closed session.
We were unable to convene the meeting, yes.
So, Councilman Joyner, if you could lead us in the pledge.
Be happy to, Mayor. If you'll all please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
There you go.
Are there any agenda modifications? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Mayor, there is one. We were contacted by the applicant related to 10D this afternoon that requested that we pull it for a future date. I don't have more detail on why, but we'll report back.
Okay, cool.
Okay, any other agenda modifications?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. We will now go on to item 6, presentations. And here, a presentation on the California Business Roundtable, Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. Charles Anderson, Public Affairs Manager of the League of Cities, will present to us.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Carl Skint and council members. Thank you for allowing me to present on the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act of 2024. Before I start on that, I just wanted to real quick remind the council and your citizens what the League of California Cities is, and also the ways that its members, which include the city of Lincoln, can participate. Since 1898, Cal Cities has fought to protect and enhance local control. Over the past decade, Cal Cities has secured hundreds of significant victories for its members. Cal Cities has harnessed the voices and collective power of its 476 member cities, representing thousands of city officials and the millions of California residents they serve. Cal Cities policy positions are entirely driven by its members, city officials just like you. Cal Cities recognizes that constantly listening and learning is essential to ensure representation of the diverse interests of our membership while protecting local control. And then that's how, together, we'll ensure that Cal Cities continues to deliver. Cal Cities has a number of resources and ways to participate. There are 16 regional divisions, of which the Sacramento Valley Division represents 59 cities and is led by its own 14-member board. The 2023-24 president is Portia Middleton, who's a council member from the city of Citrus Heights. And also, its second vice president is Lincoln Mayor Pro Tem Holly Andrada. There are also 10 professional departments, such as the mayor's and council members department. There are 5 diversity caucuses and there are 7 policy committees, and individual council members and also staff can participate in a lot of these different areas. Now, for the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act of 2024. Proponents of the so-called Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act include the California Business Roundtable, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and the California Business Properties Association. CBRT represents California's wealthiest corporations, who are developers such as KB Homes, oil such as Exxon and Chevron, insurance such as State Farm, and drug companies such as Pharma. The coalition has raised just over $17.2 million, with the majority of the funding coming from real estate developers, investors, and property management companies. Contrary to what proponents say, the measure is not in the interest of taxpayers, nor does it promote accountability and transparency. The measure is a bait and switch tax trick, a deception that would benefit corporations at the expense of everyday taxpayers and local public services. The measure creates constitutional loopholes, allowing wealthy corporations to avoid paying their fair share for the impacts that they have on our communities, including local infrastructure and utilities services, while rewriting the law to undermine voters' rights and elected representatives. The measure implements significant new restrictions on local government, tax, and fee authority, as well as restriction on voter ability to pass measures. One of the most significant provisions of this measure is that any taxes and fees adopted after January 1, 2022 that do not comply with the new rules are void unless reenacted. On the fiscal side, the measure is projected to reduce state and local government funding for core public services by billions annually. This means service reductions and declines, including emergency response, law enforcement, public health, drinking water, sewer sanitation, parks, libraries, affordable housing, and more. The measure includes a significant amount of vague and legally undefined language that could open the door for frivolous lawsuits. The measure is a threat to local control. When local voters and their elected representatives are hamstrung and blocked from providing revenue to vital services, it jeopardizes public safety and quality of life. Cal Cities estimates approximately $2 billion in existing fees and charges, along with $2 billion in voter-approved measures, will be subject to legal peril if this measure passes. Over $20 billion of local government fees and charge revenues over 10 years will be placed at heightened legal and referendum peril. This means the measure could force billions of dollars in cuts to fire, 911, emergency response, law enforcement, services and support for homeless residents, and more. Additionally, hundreds of millions of dollars passed by voters after January 1, 2022 that don't comply with the initiative's strict new limitations could be at risk. One of the most significant provisions of the initiative is that taxes and fees adopted after January 1, 2022 that do not comply with the new rules are void unless reenacted. In order to be reenacted, the tax needs to be reapproved according to the requirements outlined in the initiative. The measure also invalidates the Upland decision, which allows a majority of local voters to pass special taxes put on the ballot by citizens and specifies that initiative taxes are subject to the same rules and taxes as taxes placed on the ballot by the city council. requiring a 2/3 voter approval. Additionally, all future local taxes must contain a duration, and all tax measures passed after January 1, 2022 that do not are repealed and must be reapproved with the length of time the tax will be in effect. General tax measures will also require the exact phrase for general government use in the ballot measures description and cannot have a companion advisory measure on the same ballot. According to an analysis by Michael Coleman, voters approved 106 measures that do not provide a specific duration. This is nearly $500 million dedicated to local services that are now in jeopardy. Here are just 3 examples of local measures at risk, all from Placer County. If you look at the percentages, these transient occupancy tax measures, TOTs, passed by, it would simply be a waste of their taxpayers' money and their cities' resources to require those cities to re-educate their public and hold another election to pass those hotel taxes again. It's just not necessary. Lincoln's TOT has been 10% since 1999, at least from the information that I was able to find. Your fellow Placer County cities are just catching up to Lincoln. Additionally, all fee increases need to be approved by 2/3 of the local legislative body. The measure creates a new requirement that fees and charges may not exceed actual cost of providing the product or service for which the fee is charged. The actual cost is defined as the minimum amount necessary, a vague term that will result in a race to the bottom for local funding and endless legal challenges. What is the minimum amount necessary to support 911 and emergency response times? What is the minimum amount necessary to provide city residents access to essential services? The standard alone would decimate much-needed local services that our communities and neighborhoods rely on. Additionally, fees and charges for corporations to use or lease local and state government property can no longer be market-based and must be reasonable. This provides corporations that lease government property with a major subsidy. How will this impact Bierman Plaza? What impact might this have on nonprofits that currently receive a waiver? The measure is intentionally designed to open the floodgates for thousands of frivolous lawsuits challenging fees and charges. Additionally, as you know, almost every local government adopts annual changes to dozens or even hundreds of fee rates and charges. They also revise rate schedules to accommodate additional users and activities. Most of these revisions will be subject to the strict new standards and limitations of the initiative, subject to higher vote thresholds, voter approval, and all subject to litigation. To conclude, these are just some of the groups opposed to the measure. You see the League of California Cities on there, Association of California Water Agencies, et cetera. In addition to those groups you see, there are other groups opposed to the measure, which include California Association of Sanitation Agencies, California Medical Association, California Professional Firefighters, California School Employees Association, California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, California State Association of Counties, Fire District Association of California, and more. And that concludes my presentation unless the council has questions for me. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the council?
Thanks, Charles, for that. I really appreciate it. My only question is, and we've done this a lot, right? Where the bill comes up or a measure and the league chooses to either support or oppose or neutral. What is the league actually doing to put pressure to oppose this? Like what tactics can you do or are they doing? What's the board doing to
For
oppose it?
this measure,
Mhm.
we're part of a broad coalition. As I mentioned, there's some of them, they're meeting regularly to formulate their strategy.
Okay.
We're working through the media. We had a press conference just this last week, as a matter of fact, in Sacramento. We're engaging with our member cities to also develop local coalitions. And as this progresses through later in the year, you'll see much more about it on paid and earned media and unearned media. So I would say you'll see definitely, it'll become more visible over time, what we're doing.
And you said it's qualified to be on the ballot. So is it a foregone conclusion that it will be, or is all of this work to oppose it, trying to get it to stay off the ballot?
Yes, and we have not heard, or I have not seen anything where they would not have it on the ballot. It is able to be on the ballot. It's
Okay.
expected that it'll be on the ballot unless the CBRT chooses to
Mhm.
withdraw.
And is there talk of challenging the Attorney General and how this measure is titled? Because it's very deceptive, which is what they always do. Is,
They've already done that. The title and summary have been set. There is a lawsuit that's going on. Actually, it's expected to have its hearing early in May
okay,
on whether or not it violates the state constitution.
okay, thanks, Charles.
Any other question?
No. Councilmember Andrade hit on all of them. I'm frankly, while I do understand on one level, I'm a little surprised that Howard Jarvis is pushing this so very hard with the negative impacts to all of our communities. I thought they were smarter than that.
Any questions from the public? Okay, so thank you very much
All right, thank
for the
Thank you, Charles.
presentation and for scaring the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is another presentation, I think, on the website. Meet your city council member.
Yeah, while she's gonna be getting ready, I'll introduce this a little bit. So when I first started with the city, GIS wasn't really a thing. It was pretty much non-existent. So over the last 7 years, my team, mostly my team, has been working on building this up, and we really focused on more internal projects, things that could support staff in making better decisions easier, quicker, and more cost-effective. And so now we're really working on a big push to make more public-facing maps. And we'll be presenting those over the next year or so, things that we slowly roll out. But this is gonna be one of the first of them. And I just, my staff is pretty amazing. I'll come up with some harebrained idea or see something and I'll pitch it and be like, okay. And they usually make it better than it was. And so this is one of them. So with that, I want to introduce Papanzine. She's one of my most senior GIS staff. She's amazing. She has a contagious smile. And so I'll let her take it away.
Thanks, Jen. I'll just say we have an amazing staff because of amazing leadership. So right back at you. So as Jen mentioned, I am part of the GIS team here at the City of Lincoln. And as part of the effort to produce more public-facing maps and content, what I'll be presenting today is kind of an overhaul of the City Council's biography webpage, as well as the district lookup for residents to view what districts they belong to. So this new version of it is just a little bit more interactive than the previous version. It's printer friendly and it's viewable on mobile devices as well pretty easily. So before I get started into the demo, I just also wanted to state the city clerk's office, the city manager's office, IT and GIS for helping complete this project. The new web page can be found on the city's website. It's under the Lincoln City Council site. If you scroll down under the images, there's this Meet Your Council. And if you click on that, that opens up the new webpage. There's ribbons here on the top that give the user the options to kind of bounce around if they want to look for something specific. I'll just start at the welcome piece. So basically here is the outline that talks about how Lincoln is governed. So there's elected officials represented by you, the council members, as well as a city manager. And it also provides some insight as to what the responsibilities of the council is. So for instance, setting policies, passing ordinances, and adopting a budget. This last section within this welcome page outlines where city council meetings are held, as well as the time and what day of the week they are. As we scroll through, we get into some of the images. These are just static images of the districts along with their boundaries, as well as who the representatives are. And then there's also individual maps for each one of these districts as well. And as we continue to scroll through, this is where it gets a little bit more interactive. So we start with the acting mayor. So in this case, it's represented by District 5. So we have their image as well as a way to contact them. So there's an email and a phone number. And then this section over here is where the map gets a little bit more interactive. You can kind of pan and zoom around to figure out what the bounds of that specific district are. And that also provides the biography of the council member as well as any of the committees that they belong to and they are part of. After the council, after the mayor, we go in numerical order. So we just follow through with the districts. So in this case, District 1, again, you'll see the representative's image as well as when their term expires and the biography with the committees that they are part of. So you'll notice as I kind of scroll through to each council member's biography, they're linked with the map. So as I go through each one of these sections, each one of the council members, the map automatically updates with that district boundary to kind of give the end user more of understanding what that district covers. So as we go through all the district, all the council members, there's also a section in here that outlines a strategic plan. As one of the responsibilities of the council, one of them is to set priorities through a strategic plan. And so there's a link within this website that takes the user to that document if they wanted more information. And then probably the most interactive piece of this revamp is the interactive address lookup to tell you what district you belong to. So before I get to that, there's just a little blurb here over to the left that tells you which terms are ending this year. And if there's someone who wanted to run for office, there's a link where they can get more information for that. But they can just close this out and view the map to search their district by the address that they're in. So this is just the instructions how to use it. If I close this out, it's the map of all of the districts, and I can click anywhere within here. And when I do that, over here on the left, it tells me the district. So if I click on that, it's a map outlining the district boundary as well as street names. Or if I wanted more information about my council member, I could click on their link, and it takes us, the user, back to the biography section of the webpage, where they can scroll through and get the contact information if they wanted to. I could also make this full screen to make it a little bit easier to use on a mobile device. So again, it starts off with the instructions. If I wanted to search by a specific address, I could type that in. I'll just use this building as an example. So it adds that point to the map. It shows me where the address is, and again, it tells me what the district is and who my council member is. But if I wanted to, I could also create a screenshot of this. So there's this option to capture the image, and I could just drag and drop it over the section that I wanted to. It'll tell me the district along with the council member name, and I can give it a title and download it if I wanted to. Or if I wanted to share this view directly with somebody else or on social media, I also have that option. So I could copy this link and share it in an email. So when somebody opens it, let's see here, copy link, to paste. So when they open it, it saves that address that I originally put in there, and it'll share that location with whoever I wanted to share this with. One of the last things that I'll show you is kind of the printer version of this information. So up here towards the top right, there's a print preview option. And so that opens a new browser tab, and it's basically all the information we just went through, but in a printable format. So I could go down, I could adjust some of these images if I wanted to before I print it out. And it's just one large document of everything that's on that page. If you have any questions, I will take those now. If not, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Questions?
I just have a comment that I'm just amazed every time you guys put something else together that just is so interactive and easy to share and easy to use and create these amazing tools for our residents, our community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, I need a new photo because I hate that picture, but thank you. This is really cool. This is really amazing. Great job, you guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. I did notice that we are using in all of our new imagery Lincoln High School's colors. I wonder what 12 Bridges High School is thinking about that at the moment. Are we going to try to get some parity going there, or
Why
are
are
we
you
just
even bringing
sticking
that
with it? They are the city colors. I know that, but it's a great job. Absolutely
Thank
great
you.
job, without question. And the ability to dig into that data in multiple directions, depending upon how you want to find your path through it, I think is really useful. We all have different ways of searching, and that's very intuitive, I think.
Okay, looks good.
How come the picture you have for the mayor looks like an old man?
No comment.
It's really neat addition to the site. And I'm looking
Hard road.
forward to more GIS supported information vehicles.
Yeah. I just would add that I just really love bragging on you guys because, this is just another tool. And I tell people that Lincoln's probably the most transparent city in the whole county. And it's true between the finances and development and now, the city council and our districts. And it's just I'm so proud. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Good work. That finishes our presentations. So now we go on to public item on non-agenda items within the subject matter of the jurisdiction of the council. I have a couple of cards. And people have 3 minutes in which to make their comments. The first speaker is Deborah Gilchrist.
Evening, council. I want to address some things that were said at last council by Ms. Andrada. First one, she accused me of defamation. I'm very offended by that. I've had very little opportunity to say anything. There's only been 2 council meetings. Every word that is out of my mouth has been truth to the best of my knowledge. And I'm very offended that you would say that. 2 meetings, 3 minutes each. The other thing you said was you accused me of picking and choosing as to what I'm talking about. Again, 2 council meetings. I met with you for 2 hours. I think it was a little bit longer than that. 3 minutes is not very much time. Meeting with you for 2 hours, that's equates to almost 2 years of coming to these council meetings to get through 18 months of dealing with your code enforcement and your city attorney. So I think it's fair that you allow me that amount of time to get through the entire thing before accusing me of picking and choosing. Plus, I don't know how you would know that. So I would be careful about what you say. The other thing, Ms. Mollenkopf denied the filing that I presented. That's from your law firm that you hired And it was confirmed by the Superior Court of Placer County that it was filed. And it was filed on April 3rd, and it was also served to us on April 3rd. So that was plenty of time where you could have communicated with me, irrespective of all the time leading up to that, the 18 months. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to get to, having said that, is your comment about the city attorney following the law. So I've already, there's many situations that we'll cover in the next 40 council meetings, which is what it equates to. There are many issues that will be brought up about your city attorney not following the law. I'd like to address two, since I only have a few minutes left. And which I've already talked about this, was her failure to include the appeals process. Every American has the right to appeal. She refused to give me that information. And I am stating that based on her own words in an email. So that is not defamatory language. That is the truth. She refused, hence why I met with Mayor asking to go over the situation. So that is not defamatory. That is proof. It's in an email in her own words. Next thing I'd like to address is her understanding of the law that is at issue here. What I'd like to do is show pictures because we would like to know what the law is. In the 18 months that we have dealt with her, she has changed. Plus, the way that she has applied her interpretation of the law is not consistent. These pictures are very, very small, but I'm going to show you this one since I only have a few minutes. This is a really good one. This is a safety issue in my neighborhood right around the corner from me. This is a 56-inch retaining wall with a surcharge behind it. The homeowner parks cars in that surcharge, $5,000 to $15,000 or 5,000 pounds of automobile. No engineered wall, no engineered plan was required, no permit. This is allowed to continue. The only thing that was done, and I know it's ringing, but this is really important, is that this homeowner was allowed to say, I don't park cars. This is evidence that he does. I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Mayor, real quick, I'm only going to respond to one thing. I didn't use the words pick and choose. What I said was, her comment was that people have contacted her and people are concerned. What I said was there's facts and evidence that aren't able to be spoken here. That's what I said. I never used the word pick and choose.
The next card is from Matt.
Hi.
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 I'm now here. Well, I've been having some fun being Mary Bierman, and I don't know if all of you know who Mary Bierman was, but she was a member of this community. You know, the plaza is named after her. Chamber of Commerce office was her home. Bierman's is still referred to as Bierman's, even though it's the International Odd Fellows. So I'm going to come here as her tonight, and I wanted to thank you, many of you, for coming to the Women's Club's 100th anniversary celebration last Monday, April 8th. And I'm sure you all have the newspaper. I don't have enough room up here, but you know, there were articles about it in there. So it's a little hard to follow that, you know. Anyway, for the people who came, there were about 200 people there. And we gave out some commemorative magnets. And we had some postcards, what the building looked like 100 years ago, what it looks like now with informational history on it. And we appreciate those of you who came and attended. We have a lot of plans to do a lot of things. And today, Erin came, and she was just wonderful. I mean, for an employee who's only been with you for 3 months, boy, does she know her stuff. And we really appreciate it. So I wanted to mention it. Okay, the other thing I wanted to tell you was that April is National Poetry Month. And Lincoln has a Poets Club of Lincoln. It was established in 2002. It has a contest for the last 19 years. The original founders were Roberta Babcock, who was mayor of this city at one time. She's also responsible for in 1959, she had a flagpole put at the airport. She was a member of the Native Daughters and of the Golden West and a member of the Women's Club. I'm sorry, you know, it's Anyway, so we have a contest every year and we have people come from, it's on the internet, it's online. This is the little chapbook of the winners. We have young adults and we have people entering from countries, different countries, you know, we'll have 200 people enter the contest. I brought you, I think the application is even on the city's website. Once a month, we have a speaker, an open mic. Oftentimes, there'll be a poet laureate from some other city, someone who's published books, really impressive people. We meet at the, what do you call it? The salt mine. And when I was there last month, Mike Hogan showed us where the shower is going to go in for the people who come there. And they have a very nice little flyer there too. Okay, so I'm just going to be quick about this because I wanted to thank Sean Sully. I'm going to finish because it's too much. I'm going to thank Sean Scully for emailing me and telling me about what's going on at Oak Tree Lane. I shared that with all the people who were interested. And I want to congratulate you for being the 7th safetiest city in the state of California. And you can all write poetry, you know. So there's a poem called Fleas. It's 2 words. It's Adam had 'em. That's it. And I wanted to leave a postcard and magnets with anyone who didn't get to come to our meeting. Okay. Thank you. So much. You know how old Barry Beerman is?
Fran,
Thank you, Fran.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, certainly those that take the time to come to these meetings and those viewing at home. Kind of short and sweet. Every once in a while, I come across a passage or something that somebody kind of kicks me in the tail and reminds me of maybe what direction I should be going. I'm not going to butcher this gentleman's name, but it's Chuck, hopefully I get it right, Palahniuk. It's Palahnik. He came up with this phrase, and the more I thought about it, the more I got into it, but I'll leave it for everyone to decide. It really kind of, I want to say, tagtails onto the end of the invocations, which is the very first line of his statement is, "We all die." And I looked at that and I said, well, that's a way to start. See, the goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will. And I think that that's what all of us in this beautiful state, country, world, I think need to do, because the first line does happen and the second one happens only if we try. Thank you.
nobody on the council wishes to pull something. Does anybody in the audience wish to pull an item?
He's raising his hand.
Byron,
Which
you
one,
raised
Mr.
your hand?
Chapman?
I'm looking at him.
8F.
Okay, Frank,
F and H.
okay.
Anyone
Let us-
online?
We do have a number of people online, but no hands are raised, Mayor.
There are.
Yeah, but nobody's
hands.
raised their hand.
No hands. No hands online.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. So,
So-
the remainder of the.
I move approval of the remainder of the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Carlskent.
Yes.
And Mayor, we did have a hand go up after consent, Mr. Garabedian. Mr. Garabedian.
Well, yeah, if I, there are some, these are major reports of and so I have, I don't know if it's too late or not. I'm not quite sure what to ask. I couldn't get over there in person today, but
Yes, we've already
the
acted on the
items,
other items.
right. Well, anyway, that I would make a comment on them if I could, but if it's not permissible now, I won't.
So if you can please raise your hand before the item, as soon as the previous item, then we'll be able to call on you. But your hand came up after the vote.
Okay, I'll try to talk about it again at an open comment period. Thank you.
Okay, so we have pulled 8F, which is to adopt resolution 2024-70, authorizing city manager to execute an agreement with complete paperless solutions for implementation of a system. Did you have a question, or do you want the briefing, or do you have questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had maybe a couple of comments or possibly a question. I don't think it needs to be read out if what I'm giving you is not clear. Certainly we can try to clarify that. When I went through this document, and I will be the first person to tell you, I did not read all 1,191 pages of it. But I did go through it and I scanned through it, and what I was coming up with kind of went back in history of my mind. And I remember it was either 1976 or 77, and the very first computer showed up in the office. It was a marvel. It was a 256K. And it could chronologize stuff, and it had 2 winning points. The first winning point was you could retrieve information so much quicker than you did with a card system or files. And the other one was boldly stated, and we'll have less paper. Well, fast forward to the day, without question, I wouldn't argue the fact that there are so many other documents that are on computers throughout the world. However, we all continue to still back up important documents, and there's a reason for that. Electricity goes down, disk gets fried. There's a host of things that can happen. Yes, you can burn a piece of paper, but if you put it in a secure place where it can't catch on fire, that's pretty slim. So I'm kind of concerned, coming of age, if one of these things do happen, how do we retrieve that information? If we're totally not keeping records, how is that going to happen? Because once you figure it out and you don't look at it, then it's too late. I've had a computer crash on me once, and I didn't lose near the information that I could have if I didn't back it up. But I've got to tell you, I still go back to the papers, and that's because the bottom line, it's the paper that counts. So I'd really love to find out how this is going to help us and how this is safeguarded, and most importantly, and my only question is, how much easier will it be for the public to, instead of turning in a records request, to be able to go in and get that document? And if so, how do they do that? Is there an index or something that they can follow through? So thank you very much.
You want to handle that?
Yeah, Jen Brown and I are going to tag team this. I'll answer the last question first as to how easy it will be for the public. So we will have a public directory. And so with this system, we will have access to all of our public information, our staff reports, our resolutions, our ordinances, and some other very common requested items will be accessible on the website, whereas now it's kind of, you have to go to a certain council meeting to dive deeper into. So it will make it easier for folks to go online and without having to do public records requests with the city clerk's office. As far as the technology, Jen Brown's going to answer that difficult question for me.
So in the city, we are already paperless. We don't keep files of things. We've scanned everything and it is digital. We do have multiple ways that we back up. We have on-site backups, we have cloud backups, we have several months and year of backup that we can go back to pull data from. So we are in a good spot there. As far as what this is going to do, why we're doing this project, the system that we've been using for the last 10, 13, 15 years is obsolete. It's sunsetted. So it's something that is required for us to do to get maintenance updates and security and everything else. But with it, we're going to get a lot better of a product. So searching will be better, indexing. There's now everything has to be looked up by keywords that somebody put in when they scanned it, and this will be able to do OCR, which actually reads the document and searches for data. So overall, it'll be a really good project for the city.
One thing I just might add to that is, so I've worked at a number of cities. I appreciate Mr. Chapman's comment because nothing is more frustrating than searching for a document in a system and finding out that it doesn't exist in the system. But with that said, it's almost never fire that makes you lose the paper. It's almost always mold and water. And I cannot tell you how many times, even here, where we'll go to Banker's Box from 1978, and even though it was kept in a relatively dry location, everything on the lower half of it is moldy and unusable. So this really is a better tool for us to make sure we're preserving those. With that said, Gwen has a whole bunch of historical documents that go back to the incorporation of Lincoln, and even before that, that will never be destroyed. We'll always keep things that from either a sentimental or historical perspective are really important to keep, and then specific kinds of documents that we would just never want to lose, those all be retained too.
Yeah, not too long ago, Dia showed me the minutes from the very first council meeting.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah.
I assume that, I'm pretty sure, that we have a plan, a backup and a data safety plan that has backup locations other than City Hall, has a rotation of backups. I've been paperless in my home for 10 years now. Well, 9, it took my wife a year. Anyway, and all you have to do is you back it up electronically. We don't get bills, we get electronic bills. So that's gave her a lot more room to store a lot of other stuff that we used to store in paper. So if that takes care of your questions, we'll go ahead and vote on this item. I have a motion.
Move approval of item 8F.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent.
Sure. Next item is H. Adopt a resolution waiving the rental fee for Bierman Plaza for the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce and Placer County Ventnors.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, council members, city staff. As I read through the packet, I think anytime we can promote downtown is a good thing. But as I continued to go back to it, something kept gnawing at me. And that gnawing was the city has worked very, very hard over the last, at least 5 to 7 years, maybe even 10, to get into the policy of drawing a line in the sand, putting the barriers, the out of bound lines exactly where they are. When it comes to issues where different groups, nonprofits come in and say, gee, we'd really like to have this waived. I remember when this first started, they were probably 5 or 10. Maybe that was the max, but that was at like one meeting. And so that's why there was such a push in order to make sure that that line was drawn in the sand. And as I read through this, and I'm not denying that this is a good thing to do, but I'm just not so sure, who else do you not let that fee? That's what I'm looking at. So it's the exception that often starts the whole wheel rolling down the road. And at some point, we have to say, well, here we are, and this is it. Whether it's a good idea, whether it's a great idea, at some point, you have to get to that so people understand that. And then simply on a side note, and this is from a personal perspective, I know that the city and the high schools put on a tremendous project that had to do with every 15 minutes. I believe that's the title. And one of the things that I was thinking about that as we went, looking at this, and not the chamber or anyone else, regardless of who might have came up with this idea and wanted to do this, I'm simply saying we spend so much concern, which we should, on our youth, making sure that they don't drink, they don't drive, they don't do these things to try to keep them alive. And yet then we turn right around and we promote drinking. That's got to be a mixed message there somewhere for our youth. And I'm just simply saying that maybe there's other ways in which to promote it. And you're saying, yeah, that's wrong, but here we are promoting it. So for what it's worth, thank you.
Would you like to say?
Sure. So I think that's fair point. The distinction, so I get, a lot of these requests don't actually make it to city council because I field most of them. And my litmus test, at least at my authority level, is if it's a community type event that is not designed necessarily from a business perspective, but maybe from an education perspective. For example, you know, the school district needs to use the pavilion for something, or periodically we'll have state and federal elected officials that want to do a town hall and sort of update on the work that they're doing, or Caltrans or whoever. Those kinds of things are pretty easy because there's obvious value in providing that space for that kind of. Another example might be the Titan Remediation Advisory Board. We almost held that here at City Hall, but it was going to be too big. Things like that that are clearly public facing. In this instance, the way we evaluated it was, I feel like if Lincoln's downtown is going to get to a place that everybody really wants it to get to, we've got to stop chasing the nickel to get to the dollar. We have to think about these things holistically, and the difference between, we have lots of events at the plaza. Some of those events are designed and rented out to the vendors as a sort of profit-making exercise, which is fine. And in my estimation, at least, that's when fees are totally applicable. In some limited instances where it's a short-term kind of duration like this, which is sort of trying to target a little bit of additional activity in a time when there might not be so much, we see the value as sort of the attraction it brings to the downtown and some of the, maybe not in Lincoln, but some of the area businesses in and around Lincoln that draw people to our area, and what that may do for our business community 3 or 4 blocks in any direction of the downtown, which is why we thought it was a generally reasonable request, and we wanted to try to remove barriers to make that happen. But again, fair point by Mr. Chapman, and this is why we put a relatively minor fee waiver on for council to consider, because we want to feel comfortable that you are in support of it.
So Mayor, we do have a hand raised on Zoom. Mr. Garabedian, please go ahead.
Thank you. Mike Garabedian again. At this point, I have a question. On my computer screen, item E is still listed. Is it possible to comment on item E at this time?
No, that
The
was already
bold
acted
agreement
on.
for 12.
No, that was acted on. This.
Okay, well, I'm just,
Yes, this is just for use to refer to. It's not, we have no way of modifying it during the meeting. So it's just a list of consent items. That's all it is.
Okay, I see. I try to comment on that issue at some point. Thank you.
Any other?
No other hands are raised, Mayor.
Well, Mayor, I would just like to comment that I do appreciate Mr. Chapman's comment. I mean, as someone myself who's not a drinker, I appreciate his comment. And, but we've had, whether we waive a fee or not, we've had multiple events in the plaza where there was wine and beer and whatever. And so, you know, drinking is legal in America, but what we don't do, we don't promote underage drinking. And that's what every 15 minutes is about. And so although I appreciate the comment 100%, we don't promote underage drinking, and there's a whole difference to that. So I just wanted to make that comment.
And I'd also like to clarify that this item really isn't about whether or not we're holding the event or not. It's only about the fee. And to me, if by waiving the fee, it allows us to show that we're promoting businesses for downtown and for people to come downtown, not whether or not it's about that. But I agree with you whether or not we need to make sure we're promoting the right things for
sure.
our community. And I agree with Holly completely.
Through the chair, if I can build on that just very quickly. For years, we have referred to ourselves as the gateway to the Placer Wine Trail. But we've had very few tools to establish that in people's minds. We've attempted to have tasting rooms to varying levels of success, but this attempt at it, I think, will really get off the ground, having the Vintners Association be a partner in this. And if you go out to the wineries, if you go out to the breweries, they're more than simply the alcohol that they might be promoting and growing locally. They're food trucks, they're music, they're all the rest. And so to be able to bring kind of a sampling of all of that into our downtown for people to experience and then go out into the communities and hit each and every one of those locations that they found appealing is exactly what we were trying to do with our previous efforts. So I think this is a great first step, and fingers crossed it'll be successful and certainly worth, in my mind, investing in from an economic development perspective.
Other comments?
So with that, I move,
Sure.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor. Yeah. Okay, I move to approval of item 8H.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskint.
On to public hearings. Item 9A. The public hearing to adopt proposed amendment for the Philly 7 strategic specific plan, impact report, and approving the specific plan amendment and approving amendments to the GDP. Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, there we go. Good evening, council members. Michaela Noble, Assistant Planner with the Community Development Department. Kevin Vellante with Raining Planning is here tonight. He's been working with me on this project. He's one of our consultants that we've hired, and he'll be presenting on some slides later on in the presentation. The project we have before you is the Village 7 Specific Plan and General Development Plan Amendments Project. And before we get started, I'd just like to reference the memo that you've all received regarding a missing chapter from the clean version of the Village 7 General Development Plan and Exhibit 3B. Just a little bit of a formatting error occurred when we were kind of gathering all the documentation together and providing it for you. And unfortunately, Chapter 5 was inadvertently omitted. The applicant isn't proposing any text amendments or changes to what is listed in that chapter. Some edits were made just for formatting purposes, but no text changes. So Those edits really aren't pertinent or significant to the project application we have before you. So just some history on the project. The Village 7 project was approved originally back in 2010. The applicant is proposing to just make a few amendments. Back in June 2010, like I said, the Village 7 specific plan and general development plan was adopted for the development of over 700 acres to include 3,000 dwelling units and approximately 125 square feet of commercial space. The Village 7 specific plan environmental impact report was also certified at this time. In August 2023, the city executed a development agreement with Lincoln Land Holdings LLC to develop over 500 acres of the Village 7 plan area. In January 2017, the city amended the development agreement just to reflect some minor changes in the park phasing plan. And lastly, in August 2022, the city adopted an amendment to the Village 7 specific plan to incorporate new lot sizes and increase the residential unit count by 30 in phase 1 of the development. Right here, we have the Village 7 specific plan area. Like I mentioned previously, the project consists of approximately 700 acres within the adopted Village 7 plan area. The project site is currently undeveloped. However, infrastructure improvements as part of phase 1 of Village 7, which is the purplish outlined area in the central portion of the project site, is currently being developed at the moment. Surrounding uses for the project site include undeveloped land to the north and south, the North Ingram Slough and Lincoln Crossing subdivision to the east, and the City of Lincoln wastewater treatment facility and undeveloped land to the west. The applicant, Lewis Plan Communities, is requesting to amend the approved Village 7 specific plan and general development plan and certify an addendum to the Village 7 specific plan environmental impact report. The proposed project will not result in any new significant information of substantial importance, and therefore the preparation of an additional supplemental or subsequent EIR is not required. The proposed amendments of the Village 7 specific plan and general development plan include revisions to the plan area's land use designations and changes to the development processing methods. The project is intended to reflect open space areas and conservation easement boundaries approved by several federal and state agencies, update land uses to respond to market shifts, strategically consolidate park sites, and improve efficiency and simplicity to implement the Village 7 specific plan and general development plan. A little summary of the changes that we have with the land use changes. The proposed project would include the removal of almost 5 acres of village country estates, increase the village low density and medium density residential designation area, decrease the village high density residential and village mixed use designations, and change about 12 acres of the village parks and rec and linear parkways to village open space. The previously approved total unit count would not change with the proposed amendments. The existing land use plan is shown on the screen on your left. And on the right, the proposed land use plan illustrates the land use modifications and park consolidations. These graphics are also included in the staff report for your reference. Staff analyzed the proposed amendments to the approved Village 7 project and concluded that they are consistent with the goals, policies, and intent of the adopted Village 7 specific plan and the city's general plan. Now for some environmental information, I'm going to hand it over to Kevin.
Great, thank you, Michaela. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kevin Valente. I'm the contract senior planner from Rainey Planning and Management, who assisted processing the project. Rainey Planning and Management prepared the addendum to the Village 7 specific plan EIR. The proposed project has been determined to include minor technical changes and would not substantially modify or increase the potential development of the site from what was previously anticipated. As described previously, the total unit count to be developed did not increase from what was included in the Village 7 specific plan EIR. As a result, the area of disturbance associated with the proposed project would not extend beyond what was previously approved. In addition, since the preparation of the EIR, an Army Corps of Engineers Section 404 permit, a Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board Section 401 certification, and a 1602 streambed alteration agreement have been acquired for the project site. As such, in addition to the mitigation measures associated with the project, these new permits and certifications would also need to be complied with. The addendum did include minor modifications to the cultural resources mitigation to better reflect current practices, including recognizing the role of the tribes that are traditionally and culturally affiliated with the project site and the vicinity. The city coordinated with the United Auburn Indian Community to ensure the modified mitigation was appropriate. The modification included the appropriate methods to treat such resources if they are present. All other applicable mitigation measures from the previous EIR are included in the updated mitigation monitoring plan. With that, the addendum determined that substantial evidence does not exist that the proposed project would have a significant effect on the environment beyond which was previously evaluated in the EIR. Specifically, the proposed project would not result in any significant information or substantial importance, new impacts, new mitigation measures, or revised alternatives, or an increase in the severity of previously identified impacts. As a result, a subsequent EIR is not required pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act.
Back in March, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on the proposed amendments. Members of the public expressed concerns related to public safety and traffic. The commission also had some concerns regarding traffic impacts on Ferrari Ranch Road and the loss of commercial acreage. So in regards to public safety, at the Planning Commission meeting, adequate emergency response times was brought up. The Village 7 specific plan outlines that there's a potential for a fire station to be built within the community. However, there is not a proposed piece of land that has been accepted at the moment. The Village 7 area will also be required to be annexed and pay into a CFD to pay for and provide public safety and services. In regards to traffic, with the original Village 7 project approval, the EIR analyzed the project's associated traffic impacts and factored in the complete build-out of Village 7, Lincoln Crossing, and Sorrento. As the circulation plan is not being amended, the previous traffic analysis still applies. Additionally, with the conversion of one of the village mixed-use sites into residential, fewer trips are typically associated with residential uses compared to commercial. Therefore, in theory, the traffic amount should decrease with this change. The city's general plan also outlines that Ferrari Ranch Road will be a 4-lane road, and as that's what's been approved already and isn't proposed to be changed, that is still consistent with the city's general plan. The conversion of the village mixed-use site north of Ferrari Ranch Road into residential was also previously analyzed with the original Village 7 environmental impact report. These units were already included in the Village 7 specific plan total unit count. The specific plan and development agreement both outline that this parcel can be developed as residential if it's not developed commercially. The marginal site has become inferior due to development of neighboring commercial sites such as Lincoln Crossing Marketplace, Sterling Point, and future SEDB and Village 5 commercial sites. Therefore, the applicant has opted to convert this parcel zoning designation to residential. Other comments included concerns regarding high-density residential in the area. The proposed amendment shifts the medium and high-density residential zones that are, they shift them south in the areas north above Ferrari Ranch Road, so there's no competing or conflicting land uses with the Sorrento neighborhood to the east. High-density residential is also necessary in order to diversify our housing stock here in the city. Ultimately, the Planning Commission recommended that City Council approve all of the requested entitlements. Staff recommends City Council adopt a resolution approving the proposed addendum to the certified 2010 Village 7 specific plan EIR for the Liberty at Lincoln project. adopt a resolution approving the Village 7 specific plan amendment, and introduce and waive the first reading of ordinance 1079B, amending the Village 7 general development plan. Thank you.
Any questions? Any comments from council? From the public?
Not yet.
Not at this time. I'd like to hear from the public before.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Anyone in the public wish testimony?
We do have a hand raised on Zoom, Mayor.
No hands in locally, so wait. Go to,
Mr. Garabedian, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Michael Garabedian, Placer County Tomorrow. Appreciate this opportunity to make two comments. First, on a planning issue. I'm not raising a CEQA issue, but a planning issue. And secondly, a possible financing issue. Based on looking at the presentation alone, it looks like there may be housing or development near a sewer plant, near or next to a sewer plant operation. Now, I could be wrong because I haven't been out to look at the area. And if it is, then I would think that would be a kind of an unwise decision as in a planning matter to have people living so close to a sewer plant. And the second one has to do with the community service district. I'm wondering if this is also subject to a bold financing from the California Municipal Financing Authority, which was on an earlier on the agenda. I missed an opportunity to comment on. And if it is a Mello-Roos project, I would comment further in some detail, but the main point being that I think that whenever the city is entering into a municipal finance agency, bold money, you should have before it a list of all of the city's projects that have bold financing and municipal financing, and with some kind of a measure of the amount of financing of that nature you have and how well it's being managed for the future. So those are my comments. I appreciate this chance to bring up a planning and a financing question that is both important for this project and also citywide in terms of the, I think, very large use of Mello-Roos funds. Thank you.
would the one I handle the financial
Well,
question first or planning?
I think maybe we could knock them out one by one. On the bold financing, Phil Rodriguez from Lewis Planned Communities is here this evening, and I think, unless Phil, you shake your head at me, I'm pretty sure that at least portions, if not the majority of the backbone infrastructure will be funded through bold programs. And that may not only be water, sewer, and that kind of infrastructure. They may also include school facilities as well. I think that just in broader terms, for projects of this size, larger and even quite a bit smaller, we're not seeing almost any developments that come in these days that are not utilizing SCIP or bold funding on some level. That has become sort of the norm in terms of financing. And there's, just for everybody that doesn't know, there's really two important reasons for that. The first is that bold and SCIP provide a relatively low-cost financing option for cities and developers to get that infrastructure installed. Why does that matter? Well, that leads to point number two, which is that before these tools existed, that cost of that infrastructure was wrapped into the sale price of the home, and so you would be paying, a 30-year, most people, a 30-year term mortgage on all of your home cost, as well as some of the infrastructure that had been added into that at at a higher rate than you certainly would be paying under the BOLD program. And so it's provided a tool. Externally, it sort of looks as a way for developers to pass that cost through to the end user, the customer. But in practicality, that was always happening. It was just happening under your mortgage. The second thing, I'll defer to planning on the wastewater comment. That's more of a style question, I suppose. But I could tell you that in very urban areas, there are wastewater facilities that are completely built around with residential. We run a tertiary treatment plant, which is the highest level of treatment. We have very, very strict odor guidelines that are watched very closely by our regional board. And to the extent that if we even really receive one complaint from a neighbor, we're getting letters and fines before we get that under control. I will tell you that the vast majority of odor complaints that we get in that area are actually not from the plant. They're from the landfill down the street from the plant. No offense to the WAPMA members that are present.
None taken.
I was going to offer Mr. Garabedian the opportunity to visit the wastewater treatment plant, walk through it, see it. You'll be impressed, and you'll be astounded at the lack of odor. Unbelievable.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate that point, if IT could bring up the slideshow again I am on the current, perfect, great. On the proposed plan and even on the existing plan, along the west end of the portion south of Ferrari Ranch Road, there is kind of a buffer in between the residential uses away from the wastewater. So we have the open space and the parks and rec that kind of provide a bit of separation. So it's really not on top of each other to kind of mitigate any, odor effects that may come up once in a while.
Any other questions? Saying none, I'll bring it back to council, close the public hearing. And wants to start.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I've been tracking this one as long as anybody. The evolution of projects like this is actually kind of interesting to watch when, and I'm not going to be speaking out of turn here, Phil. When we started this, there was exploration of very nice grocery store being located in the village. And so our general plan does have that village commercial concept set up in the middle of each individual village to reduce vehicle miles traveled and to promote walkability within the community. What's happened, I believe, and it bothers me slightly to see the village commercial essentially go away in this project. We've talked at length about that, that troubles me. But I'm also aware, frankly, from a project that my family held on to for many, many years that was zoned commercial, was originally drawing interest from Safeway on Joyner Parkway and Nicholas. And as the newer areas, commercial areas came on, the viability of that commercial property diminished greatly. And I think that it's in your staff report. I think that's what's happened here. I know that Lewis has gone out and looked very hard at interest in commercial properties in that area and not had what I would have hoped would have been the kind of response they would need to make that viable. So with that minor acceptance that the world moves on and things shift and we have to adjust, these are really fairly minor changes, and I think they ultimately are better for the surrounding communities. So I'm going to be supportive of this. And just as a reminder for anybody watching, this is not approval of a project tonight. That project was approved initially, a decade ago?
2010.
14 years ago, with some minor amendments along the way. So this is nothing new. This is just some tweaking as that evolutionary process has taken place.
Yeah, I agree with you quite a bit, Paul, actually. That was the thing that really bothered me the most, was that commercial portion of it. And I completely understand that things change, right? And, maybe the commercial portion changes a little too, where, maybe it's not a grocery store that we're looking for, but I really love the concept of having, a commercial of something there. I mean, Subway or a little convenience store or something like that, that's like a neighborhood thing where people just walk to that for that convenience of it, not because it's a grocery place to get it. And that is the biggest thing that I really don't like about it. Everything else I really appreciate and I like actually everything else that's been changed on it. But if we get rid of that, I'm supportive of the changes, but if we get rid of that, then that commercial, it's never gonna be there. It's never gonna have a Subway, it's not
Yeah,
gonna have.
With the staff report, though, I think appropriately recognizes that as Village 5 comes on, that is a major commercial area for our community, and eventually the infrastructure will exist to be able to access that fairly easily from the site. As someone who lives very near this project, I can tell you that what folks in Lincoln Crossing would like, for the most part, is we don't have a gas station on our side of town. We don't have a convenience store on our side of town. If you need a gallon of milk in the middle of the night, you're heading all the way across Lincoln Boulevard.
Right.
Or to Target if you're lucky, right? And so from a convenience perspective, I'd like to see that happen. I think Phil's got some thoughts about how down the road that might still be feasible. And we can talk about that at a future date, but
Yeah, and like I was saying, I'm supportive of the changes. I just wanted to voice that was the only thing that really bothered me about it.
Well, that was my concern too, and you already covered both of you, so I'm supportive, but that was the same thing. I have nothing else to add.
Any comments, Bill? I am supportive. Lincoln Hills has a commercial center in Lincoln Hills.
struggles.
Pardon me?
That struggles at times.
Struggles all the time. It's devolved to one very small market for emergency type of things that isn't open 24 hours. They can't because of because of their nearness to Sterling, the other shopping center, like Village 7 to the Lincoln Crossing. They can't get anybody in there other than nail people, cleaners.
Well,
You have
an accountant.
you have a convenience
To
store,
to
right?
digress,
We have a convenience store, but it's not
to
getting you a
digress
cup of
just a
coffee.
little bit, that was the only location where a Starbucks was not successful in this community.
I know.
It didn't last maybe a year.
That's
But the
funny.
convenience store isn't a real convenience store
Yeah.
because it is short hours.
Oh,
That's
gotcha.
anyway, so hopefully, all center for convenience will be the hope. Anyway, so, no more comments. Would I, motion?
Of approval of the item.
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta.
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Carlskent.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, McKay.
Yeah, very good job.
Thank you.
On to general business, 10A. The police department will give us an update on the person of Chief Matt Allen.
Thank you for having me tonight, and we'll pull this up. There
Oh,
we
that
go.
turned out nice. That turned out really nice.
That is the first department photo we've had since probably '01. So in March, we had a all-hands department meeting and invited all of our staff to attend and just gave some general updates, and we were able to get a quick photo of everybody in Class A uniform. So a rare opportunity for us. So we're pretty proud that we're able to do that. So what I have tonight for you is just a general update. It's been a while since we've just had a discussion, and I wanted to share with you some of the accomplishments that we've done over the past, I don't know, year, kind of winding down this fiscal year. So this is kind of since the beginning of that. And just to give you some feedback for really it's the policy decisions, the funding decisions, and the trust that you have in me and our department members to keep the city safe. So just giving you some feedback on some major accomplishments and some things that are on the horizon. So we'll jump right into it. So these goals here, these are what were listed on our budget goals, just in the annual updates in the budget. So continue to recruit to ensure all authorized positions remain filled. Currently, all sworn authorized positions are filled. I still maintain we are understaffed, but we don't need to have that conversation tonight. This is positive. But all positions are filled, 30 sworn at the moment. We are still actively recruiting, trying to keep viable candidates available in case somebody does decide to go elsewhere. But things are looking good there. Dispatch, we're down a position and have an individual in backgrounds, and then we'll be fully staffed there.
Chief, how many dispatch do you have?
So actually working in the center, we have 7 full-time dispatchers. We have a dispatch supervisor, and then we do have another dispatcher who has 30-plus years of records experience, and she is pretty much leading our records department. So she's not on the console, but she's working in records full-time.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just
No,
was
not a
curious because I
problem.
was having this conversation with somebody about dispatch the other day and I wanted to verify. So are all of our funded, approved dispatch positions filled, or do you still need more?
We have 1 vacancy because of a resignation, and that should be filled shortly.
Okay.
But the ultimate goal is to have 2 dispatchers on at all times.
Right.
And there will likely be some behind-the-scenes personnel maneuvers in the next month or so that might help us accomplish that.
Thank you.
The next item is train a certified traffic officer for motorcycle use. You are all very aware that Officer Schneider is out there and making an impact and being very visible and being very noticed out there on the streets. So we pretty much crushed that goal. Very happy with that. Update response areas to better analyze crime statistics. This goal is still in progress. This is really nothing that you would necessarily see, but what we can do is just, my goal is to better pare down our CAD system into better response areas so we can do more effective crime analysis and searching. Our CAD system was installed in May of 2005, and we really haven't updated the back end as far as the crime analysis side very much. Still completely searchable, but it would just save a lot of time. You know, the goal is to carve out villages and neighborhoods a little bit better, carve out commercial areas. So when we do a search of Area 7, we're not capturing all of Rayleigh's, all of Walgreens, half of Toll Bridges. So just be able to parse out data a little bit easier for us and to be able to provide it quicker for everybody who needs it. Next one is establish a full-time problem-oriented policing team. I will have a slide on that in this presentation. And construct and outfit an evidence processing room. This was a CIP project which was approved. The construction began probably about a month ago. It's a 90-day project in theory, but this crew, I have not seen a crew as good as this crew. So I am very pleased with the company that won the bid on this. They are doing great work. One of the major problems, so this evidence processing room is a part of a larger project, which is our IT room expansion. Though it is a 90-day project, there is a supply issue on some of the electrical components, which were 50 to 55 weeks out. upon ordering. So the sad reality is we're going to have a nice brand new room sitting there dormant for probably the next 40 weeks until we can get power to it. So we refuse to be held hostage and spend $50,000 to carve off 20 weeks. It's just, that wasn't okay. So that's the world we live in now. Finally conduct joint trainings with the fire department. We have done that. We've done a few active shooter trainings at the high schools, bringing fire on board, so doing the full response, then extraction, and we have more of those scheduled in the future. So doing a lot of joint training, everyone getting to know each other. As you know, there are a lot of new faces out there, both police and fire, so it's just getting everybody to know each other, work together, know each other's capabilities, know how we're going to react in certain situations. Those are the main goals. So I'm going to jump into some specific items that are that I've either been asked about that it would be just beneficial for everybody to hear about, or some projects coming up. So we'll talk about our Flock automatic license plate reader system. We have 20 LPR cameras installed in the city. We started the program about 2021, and with the system, we are sharing with multiple agencies in California per laws and acceptable practices. We've been served with PRAs on who are we sharing with. We are very transparent. We are following all laws. We can only share with who we can legally share with. And that is further noted in transparency by the public-facing transparency portal that anybody can go to. It's on our website, and you can see every agency that we share with, and then all kinds of other data with that. The most shocking stat of all this is on the next slide, not this one. We'll save that for a minute. So what's detected on the Flock LPR? All it's picking up is license plates and vehicle, a snapshot of the vehicle. It's not detecting facial recognition, it's not detecting people, gender, race, nothing. It's simply a vehicle and the license plate. And within our acceptable use policy, data is only for law enforcement purposes only. It's owned by us, and it's never sold to any third party. So Flock doesn't even own the data. It is our data. The prohibited uses can't be used for immigration enforcement, traffic enforcement. So it's not a speed camera. It's not a red light camera. It can't be used for harassment, intimidation, protected class, personal use, none of that. Anytime the system is accessed or a search is done, you have to enter in a reason under your ID, and each user has their own unique ID, so we know who's in the system, and it's stored indefinitely. Hot list policy. A hot list is stolen vehicles, wanted vehicles, missing persons vehicles. We're required to have a human actually verify that vehicle before we take any action on it. So just because Flock says, hey, you had a stolen vehicle pass on 12 Bridges and 65, dispatch still contacts the reporting agency, confirms it's still outstanding. They visually look at the plate. Are we sure that that's the plate that Flock picked up? So there's a number of verification steps that happen before we go and pull somebody over. That's what I was looking for. So March 12th to April 10th, we had 3.1 million plate reads in the city of Lincoln. 414 hot list hits. So that includes felony vehicles, stolen plates, stolen vehicles, missing child, custom hot list entry, which is an officer can do an entry if there's a vehicle of interest. So what was the impetus of this presentation was, how's Flock doing? Is it worth it? The numbers are right there. 400, that's 414 hits that we wouldn't have found. Certainly we didn't catch all 414, but for what we're paying for Flock, which is about $2,500 a camera per year, that is a huge force multiplier that just can't be beat. No, I pulled that and hang on, let's search this again. Is there really 300 and what? And there's unique plate reads and there's plate reads. So depending on what route you take through town, you could be read 5-6 times. Regardless, that for Lincoln, that number shocked me. And I can't imagine what Roseville and the larger agencies are pulling in on their plate reads. Just so on average, 82,000 to 120,000 plate reads a day. We have, in the past year, conducted just shy of 1,800 searches, just searching for a vehicle for some reason. And we're sharing with 197 California agencies. And that's the beauty of Flock, and that's where the power happens, is being able to share that. And, you know, we do a custom entry and a hot list. Well, that's shared with other agencies. So we get a plate on a vehicle that's leaving Target after grabbing one, and we throw it in there. It pops up, it hits an LPR in Roseville. Roseville can stop the car because they're going to receive the notification. And then also just being able to do searches and try to zero down where somebody frequents and be able to locate them and make an arrest. That's huge. Just some real recent case studies to emphasize the point of this. So from late 23 to present, so only the past 6 months, we had a road rage incident in 12 Bridges, resulting in assault and stabbing of the victim with serious injury. Flock was used to identify the suspect vehicle and later located and arrested. Stolen vehicle Flock hit, recovered vehicle, narcotics, and evidence of identity theft. Driver out of SAC arrested. Now, suspect vehicle left in the Lincoln, or with suspect vehicle in the theft of water treatment plant. The vehicle was entered in the Flock. Suspect returned and was contacted while stealing wire from streetlights in a construction area. Narcotics, paraphernalia, and a ghost gun was recovered. That suspect is out of Auburn and had a Flock hit for vehicle identified in a prior theft in Lincoln. Again, narcotics, paraphernalia located, multiple arrested, and then felony warrant for assault, contacted, arrested, and booked. And that's just the last 6 months. We've had a lot of really good cases that were made by Flock.
So I wasn't aware that you guys caught the person of the car that broke into the wastewater treatment plant. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right, moving on to the next item. This is our specialized resource team. So one of the goals for this fiscal year was to create a POP team. This is that team. We spent quite a bit of time and brainpower trying to figure out a good name for this team, and we'll start there. And POP team is a very common team name in law enforcement, but just the way the world is, I just had a problem with the word problem. Because are we really out there addressing problems, and are we putting the identifier of problem on a person? I just didn't want to do that. It's just the world we live in, and it was just easier to find a better team name that more appropriately represented what it is they're going to do. So this is the Specialized Resource Team, otherwise known as SRT. That's what we're calling it. So their main goal is direct engagement. Their primary focus is direct engagement with the homeless population with a focus on improving quality of life for the affected individuals. They're also going to serve as a department liaison to community homeless groups, resources, and committees. They will investigate and enforce chronic issues in the city that are beyond the scope or operational ability of other field units. They're going to assist the detective unit at the direction of the detective sergeant. They'll attend assigned community events, engage with citizens. They'll be communicating professionally and confidently with public presentations. Make sure they're developing rapport and positive relations with community members and other law enforcement, and be able to work collaboratively. So these are the main requirements that we had of the individuals who put their names in for consideration. This team will be starting May 21st of this year. This is a team where I remember sitting here and saying, you hire me 2 cops, I'll create you a POP team. Well, you hired me 1, and I'm going to go ahead and front the other one and roll the dice and hope that we can make this all work. So starting May 21st.
I love your initiative, Chief. I really do.
Let's not have that agreement moving forward. If I ask for 2, I really need 2, but.
Yes, yes.
Just so you know who it is we're getting on the team. They needed to have at least 1 year patrol experience with us by the time of appointment, and at least 3 years total sworn. This is going to be a very autonomous group, and we don't want any bad media. They're going to have a lot of leeway to do what they need to do, make their own schedule. So we just needed some people that are confident in being a police officer. We're treating this as a pilot program, so the term of this assignment is just going to be 1 year from date of appointment. At the end of the department, end of the assignment, like we do with all of our specialty assignments, they can request an extension, and then I'll review and determine if we want to extend them another year or not. And then, based on performance, staffing, or other department needs, I do have the right to remove the candidate or disband the team. again, just some city details. So this is one of those positions where it would be proper for 5% special assignment pay. They get a salary adjustment since they're moving from a 2184 hour per year schedule to a 2080. They're just an adjustment. So we're not stacking special assignment pays. If they are currently a field training officer or a corporal, they need to resign those positions if they want to take this SRT job. They'll be working a 410, but be flexible to work whatever they need to be working. So this team is going to be a part of our investigations unit. So we have 2 full-time detectives now, more or less. Now we'll have 4. They will be available to help the regular plainclothes detectives for any investigations they need, doing any surveillance at businesses or whatever. If you need some extra power to do a search, they'll be available for that. They're also, one of the agreements is they are subject to patrol coverage. Patrol comes first, so if we really need them, they may need to be working patrol that day. They're going to be dressed in the regular patrol style uniforms, so they'll look just like patrol officers, so there won't be any difference there. And one of the selling points to staff to somewhat prematurely pull a person off patrol is when on duty, unless unavailable, they will be the primary responding units to calls for service regarding homeless matters, whether it be down in the creek or an individual who, when someone calls, hey, there looks like a homeless person here doing whatever, SRT is the one that's going to be dispatched to it, not patrol when feasible. So that will alleviate patrol because we do handle a noticeable amount of calls for service for individuals like this. So that should help alleviate some work off patrol. And they'll be assigned a 2-person vehicle, so we'll have 2 in 1 car. All right, moving on to a fun one with a heavy background. So Public Safety Therapy Dog Program. So just some background as to what therapy dogs do in public safety. So they provide emotional support. They can provide comfort and companionship to individuals experiencing stress, trauma, or emotional distress. The presence alone can have a calming effect, helping alleviate anxiety and promoting emotional well-being in both emergency responders and the public. Stress reduction, interacting with therapy dogs is shown to reduce levels of cortisol, a stress hormone in humans. In high-pressure situations, such as emergency response or crisis intervention, having a therapy dog nearby can help mitigate the effects of stress and improve decision-making and overall performance. Community engagement, therapy dogs enhance community relations by fostering positive interactions between public safety and the communities we serve. The dogs can serve as ambassadors, bridging gaps between law enforcement, firefighters, medical personnel, and the public, and thereby improving trust and cooperation. Trauma recovery, the therapy dogs can play a crucial role in aiding individuals, including first responders, survivors, and witnesses, in coping with trauma and PTSD. Their non-judgmental presence and affectionate demeanor create a safe space for processing difficult experiences and promoting health and healing. And they improve morale by integrating therapy dogs into public safety organizations. They boost morale amongst personnel by providing a source of joy, companionship, and stress relief in the workplace. The improved morale obviously can lead to increased job satisfaction, reduced burnout, and higher retention rates among employees. And finally, enhancing communication skills. They can facilitate communications, rapport building in various public safety scenarios, whether accompanying victims during crisis intervention or assisting in community outreach events. They can serve as a catalyst for positive interactions, helping break down barriers and improve communications between the individuals and public safety. So we have been in contact with an organization called Hearts for Heroes USA. They're a local foundation based out of Folsom. And what they do is they provide therapy dogs in training, free of charge to public safety agencies. Hearts for Heroes, they're a nonprofit. They provide all training, supplies, food, vet, and grooming services for the dog. There is little to no cost for the agency to have a dog. And we've been matched with a dog, and we intend on him coming on site late May, early June. He will be in continued training for at least a year, a little bit longer, to be fully certified as a therapy dog. There are a couple approaches to be able to do a therapy dog program. One, you can get one already trained and good to go, or you can get one as a 14-week-old puppy like we will. and he will attend training and become certified with the handler. Before we get into that.
Wait, you didn't put the picture of him on the PowerPoint? Okay.
Going to be a surprise.
Well, I know you showed it to me on your phone.
No, I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
So this is a program that I've been researching for a number of years, and I really believe in it. It's, you just kind of think when you have a nice, well-behaved dog, I just kind of had a moment of how do I feel when there's a nice, well-behaved dog around? And you feel good. So the hard part for our agency is who's going to be the handler? How are we going to get this dog deployed? How are we going to have the dog go out and do things? And that's the biggest lift for us. So I'm going to take a leap of faith, and I will be the handler for this dog. I'm the only one with the availability, just with the flexibility and schedule flexibility with employment agreements to be able to do this. So this dog, yet to be named, will be attending things with me, and but then he'll also be able to go to critical incidents, and we'll have a secondary handler where if there's an event where it's not appropriate for me to be a part of this debrief or I need to be focused elsewhere, the dog will be able to go with the secondary handler and do that. So what this company really liked about us was the fact that I am dual roles. Since I am the public safety chief, I oversee police and fire. They started as a fire therapy dog program. They just kind of started getting into the police realm, and they really liked just the blend of what I did, because it's not going to be a police therapy dog, it'll be a public safety therapy dog. So be going to both agencies. So more on that.
Are you gonna name him by committee, or are you gonna choose the name?
The dog is already named.
Oh, okay.
They
I
get
thought
to
you
name
said-
it,
okay.
and there's a lot of meaning behind his name.
Okay, great.
And when he's introduced, you'll be able to meet
Oh, no, that's fine.
the founder, and
That's
there'll be a
awesome.
little swearing in and all kinds of fun
Awesome.
stuff. Yep. All right, moving on. One of my other main goals that was just kind of a side goal was a professional standards unit. Most larger departments have a formal professional standards unit, and it has people working full-time in that unit. And in professional standards, they will review use of force, pursuits, citizens complaints, handle IA investigations. But though we have policy that covers all of this, and we have always had policy that covers all of this, I wanted to be better at it. I wanted just every single step documented. I wanted a core group of people who this is a side part of what they do, to be really good at handling complaints, really good at use of force reviews. So we don't have the luxury of being able to have a full-time PSU, which honestly, I don't think we have enough for a full-time job, but we have a team that we've comprised of a captain, a lieutenant, and 2 sergeants, and this is going to be a part of their responsibilities as needed. So when there is a use of force, we're going to be able to follow our policy exactly as far as the review goes, and the same thing with the pursuits and the IAs. We're just going to have a core team with appropriate rank and supervisory and ability to just professionally review these things to be able to handle this. So again, these 4 individuals will be running the PSU as a assignment on the side. I'm not a part of the PSU since I'm ultimately the arbiter of any discipline that comes out. I don't have any role in this. They just feed it up to me when I need to be addressing things. So that is, we're working on finalizing some procedures. We already have all the policy, but we're working on finalizing the procedures. So hopefully in the next month or 2, we'll have the PSU stood up. And that is it for my presentation. I know I threw a lot at you from a bunch of different angles, but if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to address those.
Well, first of all, Chief, I want to congratulate you on being ranked 7th safest city in California and #1 in Northern California. And I could tell you, it really got under Rockland's skin that they were 2 behind us. which was awesome. But that was just so amazing, right? To see where we've come. And that is really attributed to the work that Chief Lee started, but really with you in the last few years. And you just need to know how grateful we are. Really, really appreciate it. And then here's my chick question. I would really like a copy of that department photo. And then if you do one with the fire department, I would like to put it in my office just because it's awesome.
We can do that.
Thank you. I'll pay for the printing. I just, you know.
It's a digital file. We'll just
Okay,
send it
great,
to
yeah.
you. It's not. There's a lot of laws
A
and
lot
rules
of,
about
yeah,
sending
we, you know,
photos.
put them
of-
out public, yeah.
I really love all of everything you've presented. I'm also really like the dog portion of it as well. Most people don't realize that as a public safety, whether it's a firefighter or a police officer, a portion of you, that is who you are. And so your life is completely different than what maybe a normal standard citizen would be because of what you have to deal with. And so not understanding that, that presence of that dog, I can only imagine is going to help with that big time. So, and then the resource team, I've already heard one community member say that he's, although it hasn't been implemented yet, has noticed a difference with the interactions with your officers. So.
Yeah, and it's no secret, and most of you probably know these. So Corporal Travis Parson and Officer Bryce Rogers have been named to represent the team. So they have already had their hand in a lot of the homeless situations for the past year or two. So it's going to be a very easy transition, and it's the right choice for us.
So I had one more quick question before I stop talking. I know this isn't part of your report because you just started it. I was just really curious if you have chosen the officers that were going to go try out for the SWAT team to join Roseville and Rockland. Have you started that process yet, or?
We have started it.
You don't have to tell me who, I'm just curious.
Yeah, have started it. No one's been specifically named yet.
Okay.
There's just a lot to it, and the time on that is required is kind of the big tough part right now.
Right,
Just
okay.
with a lot of new officers, they're just not seasoned enough for it, so the pool is very shallow.
Yeah,
And it's just trying to pick from that right now.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sure, I'll jump in. I think first Chief, want to commend you and your team. I've been through a lot of chiefs along the way. Some shape a department. And resources goes a long way towards this. Some hold a department together for as long as they're there, and do a satisfactory job of that. You have come in and made this department your own. You brought innovation, you brought creativity, you have built a very remarkable team in a very short amount of time. They are a reflection of your vision and your leadership, but they're also there supporting you and building that department from each of their individual positions as well. So really proud of the work you've done and continue to do.
Thank you.
And Holly, I did get a note from a Roseville council member who was teed off that they weren't even on the list and
Yes.
wanted to send me the statistical data that proved that they should have been.
Yeah, well, let me just, okay, so we're going to go there, I'm going to go there. So we were in a meeting and one of the Rockland council members said, well, we're right behind you, number 9, and I said, okay, well, And then a Roseville council member said, yeah, well, all the criminals come from Lincoln and Rockland and we have to arrest them. And the room was like, okay, yeah, so they were a little salty, but it felt good. Yeah,
So can we get the actual data on that?
yes.
It's all publicly available.
It's all,
but sure.
yes.
Well, if you realize that although Rockland was 2 behind us, if you look at the incidents per 1,000 people, it's actually double than Lincoln.
Yeah. So anyway,
Listen, the reality is, between the three cities, this is absolutely one of the safest
Yeah.
areas in all of California, and we should be proud of that.
yes. And I know we're not talking about it and it's still an active investigation, but I also wanted to commend you for how, I know we had a lot of help come in, but how you handled the situation a few weeks back. You guys did an amazing job. Yeah.
I just have one question.
Sure.
When you took that picture, who was patrolling the city?
The city of Rockland.
Rockland
Oh,
PD,
okay.
So
yes.
we
yes.
had a gentleman's agreement with the city of Rockland. And they provided a couple staff members with the understanding that when they do this next, we'll get them back.
I actually got to talk to one of the officers that, because I saw him later that day, and he said it was great. He said, yeah, we're out there patrolling. He goes, it was really great. And I thanked him for helping us out. So, yeah.
I want to thank you. I've been asking you about the flock thing for years,
Yep.
2 years. It just solidified, those numbers solidified my impression of you when you come to ask us for something. Researched it, that you know what it's going to cost, that you kind of put your management reputation on the line when you did. And that was, although I'm not tech geeky, I really liked the idea, but the utility of it in the city of Lincoln, no, I had my doubts, but you said it was going to be good. We voted for it, and it, as far as I'm concerned, probably worth another 25 cameras. To be honest with you, I think the return on investment, phenomenal. That's my world. But 3,400,000 and some bad people.
Yeah.
1 month.
Yeah.
in
1 month.
Crazy.
Yep. Well, I appreciate, I mean, my big takeaway from tonight is just your support, and then hearing you say that, in essence, I've earned your trust, respect, in that when I come up here and say we need something, that it is well vetted and researched, and we're not throwing taxpayer money away, because I have a lot of opinions on that. So what you see is what you get, so.
I do remember ATV that I still don't know whether we got good return on investment.
So I've been chief of police since 2021. Yep. Hey,
Yes.
I've given you rides in that in parades, so.
Yes, yes. So don't complain
It-
about it.
Perfect return on
Yes.
investment. All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Chief. Thank you.
Next item is the budget augmentation and transfer of funds. Peter, the director, finance director extraordinaire, and assistant city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Carlskin. So the item before you is the final cleanup for the 12 Bridges bond funds, outstanding, long outstanding item with the city. This council is well aware that in the past decades that the city did not do the best job of charging the expenses for the projects that have been completed and that were appropriately approved to the correct funds. And so the city's current finance team is correcting those mistakes from the past. And this is one of those corrections. We brought you one last fiscal year. We're bringing you this last cleanup for these bond funds in this fiscal year, and we hope to somehow be able to bring you the remaining 2 bond cleanups. But that, in a nutshell, that's what this item is about. I'm happy to take any questions regarding these items.
Any questions from the council?
No, staff report is very thorough, so thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions from the public? Thank you. No questions, no comments? We'll accept the motion.
Come to the mic, Fran.
And I apologize for being so nervous before, but I read through that whole thing and I live in 12 Bridges and it was $17 million. I don't understand. I read it, but I don't understand it. I mean, are you using the money for something else? Are you taking, what was it used for? Is it the Joyner Parkway between 12 Bridges and Red Robin? Is it our Melrose funds that we paid? I live in 12 Bridges. You know, I don't understand it, and I read it. I really did. Thank you.
We can relate.
It is a bit of a complex matter, to be sure, because it is a longstanding and old item. So when the 12 Bridges area was constructed, bonds were pulled. The bonds were used, should have been used primarily to pay for infrastructure and other items, including part of the roadway out there, which was known as Lincoln Boulevard and is now known as Joyner Parkway. I apologize, Fran. I don't have the starting and ending of that section of Joyner Parkway that it covers, but I can get it for you if you want. Yeah. So the bond funds were appropriately brought into the city. They were adopted appropriately. Everything was done correctly. The monies were available to the city. But then as the city began constructing that infrastructure that was needed for that development, those expenses were incorrectly paid for out of other funds. So for example, and what we're talking about here, part of that Lincoln Parkway, now Joyner Parkway, was paid for out of PFE funds, and it should have been paid for out of bond funds. So that's what we're correcting, is we're taking those expenses that were appropriate, that were correct, that were authorized, and we're just paying that fund back. We're paying the PFE fund back because it should have been paid for with bond funds. And that in a nutshell is what we're doing. Is that clearer, Fran? Yeah, your tax money, it was collected appropriately, it has been held appropriately, and now what we're doing is making sure that it is going towards the use we said it was going to go towards.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Nita.
Discussion? Saying no discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I move approval of item 10B, resolution 2024-075.
Second.
A
Thank
motion
you.
and a second.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. Item 10C. Limited term property tax. The
Thank-
conquering hero.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. I was thinking, I'll get into the detail here in just a moment, but I was thinking, reflecting on my career a little bit today and just thinking about how sad it is that I'm actually excited to discuss a taxation matter with you at a city council meeting. It's really, I need to make some different life choices, I think. But so in January of 19, the city of Lincoln and Placer County, and this preceded that time, but really got moving in 2019, sat down to discuss how they could restructure some of our tax sharing agreements with the county that I think, well, certainly from a city perspective, were a little bit oblong, not in the city's favor. And the city at the time, really post-recession, had struggled to find tools to staff up appropriately in police and fire. And so at that time, a couple of council members and a couple of board of supervisors met over what I understand was a number of meetings trying to work out a way to shift property tax in a couple of tax rate areas that are indicated in the report, but just for clarity's sake, that it's essentially mostly the area that's just north of John Adams Academy, in west of John Adams Academy that you see building when you drive by on Highway 65. And the way that that agreement worked was that it basically, in simple terms, when you have raw land, there's a base tax that's been assessed based on the valuation of that. And say that's, just to make it simple, 10 acres. Let's say of that 10 acres, you get 70 lots out of it. The value of each of those lots increases exponentially as it builds and they're inhabited. And so what the agreement sought to do was essentially shift the vast majority, over 90% of the property taxes that the city and county typically share, to the city for a defined period of time. And during that time, the idea was that as these build out, this will allow the city to receive much more in property tax than we normally do, and we'll use those funds for public safety staffing, which we and equipment and other things which we have done. So the concept has worked really well. When it really got into overdrive was when the council decided to make sort of a risk conscious decision to hire a large chunk of firefighters, 9 firefighters, to supplement a pretty lightly staffed department. And we have been using Fund 101, which is where these revenues go. They do not drop into the general fund. It's a set-aside fund to essentially pick up a portion of the cost of those staffings and ideally over time shift the majority of those costs into Fund 101 as our federal COVID dollars start to be exhausted. And that's mostly worked. What in the agreement, the other really important component was the city committed to proposing a sales tax measure at some point during the term of the agreement, which went through, I believe, 2030 with extensions, and go out to the voters and have a real discussion about a sales tax that would fund public safety, of which not all of the cities in the greater Sacramento region have, but at this point, the vast majority of cities, especially Lincoln size and larger, all have that tool in their toolbox. So during strategic planning last year, one of the things that the council was cognizant of was that, hey, we need to get started on this pretty significant effort for 24 because this agreement's not going to last forever. And as we started to work through that, we did a little bit of light polling to get an idea about where we were at. And concurrently, the long discussed road tax measure was making its way through PCTPA, and you just heard Matt Click last meeting talk about that coming very likely to the ballot this fall. And we sat down and really started to think critically about, and I know this is going to sound sort of strategic, but really the way we felt was, is it fair to the Lincoln voters to have to make essentially a value decision on 2 super important things? From my perspective, public safety always sort of like on a pedestal in a way, because it's sort of it's the number one power that a local government has. That said, adequate transportation infrastructure is right there, super important as well. And so our concern was that with all of the work that's gone into the road tax measure and all of the discussion over many, many years, that we were going to crowd the ballot essentially. And so we started discussing, okay, well, what do we do? And what we did was we contacted Placer County and we just initiated discussions. There was a provision in the agreement that stated that we could get back and renegotiate if circumstances had significantly changed in some way. And from our perspective, this tripped that wire. So what we sought to do and what we mostly have done with this amended agreement is we've eliminated a couple of constraints that were placed by Placer County on the agreement to hedge their risk, and have given up something on the back end as part of the negotiation. And I'll kind of identify those for you. But essentially, what you have in front of you is we have requested that the county for the next roughly 3 or 4 fiscal years will remove the cap at which we can receive revenues. So today, under the old agreement, if that area generates more than $1.5 million in property tax, everything above that goes to the county. So that's our ceiling every year, and we're hitting that ceiling now. And so we're leaving significant dollars on the table that can go towards public safety. So we ask them to remove the cap completely. So whatever we, meaning the city of Lincoln, generate in that area over the next number of fiscal years, we will receive all of it. Up to a complete total cap of 13 million, which is a few $1 million, 1.6, I think, $1 million more than the original cap that included significant extensions going way into 2032, I believe. From the county's perspective, what is somewhat attractive to them is we've limited the term now. So the term will end in the fiscal year of 28-29. And the reason that was designed as such is that it gives us 2 opportunities for sales tax, one in 26 and one in 28, setting aside primaries or other opportunities. So we'll have 2 opportunities to actually speak with the voters about, the temperature of whether there's interest in approving something like this. And it also gives us the opportunity to, we hope, provided the market doesn't change, ensure that the huge strides that we've made, mostly in the fire department, but also in the police department, are not cut down over that time for lack of funding. So it's not a forever fix, but it does keep us in a pretty good financial position through that period of time. And this afternoon, Anita and I drove up to Placer County and sat in on the Board of Supervisors meeting where they were considering this very agreement. And one of the supervisors asked me at the podium, well, sounds good, Sean, but what happens if the tax fails in 26 and 28? And the true answer to that is, then we'll have some very difficult decisions to make. But I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that as I've had time to think about that question. The first is we're going to be able to set aside some of this money into that run successful in whatever way. And the second is that to some degree, I think that it's important that the community and the council in particular bets on Lincoln. And by that, I mean 12 Bridges is coming online with commercial projects now. Sudbee is starting to get moving now. Ferrari Pavilion is moving now. Whatever ends up happening with Village 5 will change the nature of our revenue here. And so I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion that it's sort of a do or die, but it's very important. So this agreement basically gives us the width to get to where we need to go. And it's a detailed kind of finance-driven document, and so you might not see it when you read through it, but from a strategic perspective, it's really important because it allows some sense of regularity and confidence that we're going to be able to continue to fund police and fire in the way that we hope they can be funded long term. So the only other provision I'll point out to you, which was a concession on the city side, but I feel like it's very reasonable, is that if any time during the term of this agreement we are successful in passing a tax measure, the agreement becomes null and void immediately within 90 days of certification of the election, which is only fair. To give you a sense of scale, if Lincoln were to pass a 1 cent sales tax, that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 million of revenue towards public safety in the general fund yearly. That is probably 2.5 times what we're likely to collect under this agreement on any given year. So what we're giving up by waiting is significant, but it also puts us in a position to put our best foot forward and really have that conversation with the community. So that's the agreement. We've worked really hard on this. It's been really difficult because, everybody is resource strapped and it's hard to part with anything. But the county has been collaborative in this, and even though it took us a while to get there, we did get there. And so we're very proud to present it to you and would ask your approval tonight. Oh, one last thing. And to Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem both sit on the kind of 2x2 committee that deals with this with the county. And so we had at least one, if not two meetings sort of working this through. And so we wouldn't have gotten done with really all of the council's support on this. So appreciate that.
All right.
Sure, I'll go first. After reviewing everything and hearing how everything went, that my biggest thing that I appreciated and what I call one of our biggest wins is that the county and the city are really coming together like they haven't in recent times, from what I've been told, because I'm pretty new, of course. But that to me is huge because, yeah, we're giving up a little. The county is coming in to help out as well for the greater good of the whole area with the road tax measure that they're looking at doing. And so, we could have put it together ourselves in some way, form or fashion, but the coming together with everybody involved is where I think the biggest win is.
Yeah, I don't have any questions because, as Sean said, Mayor and I were in the negotiations. We did have a few meetings. I just want to say though, even though he and I did the political navigating, Sean, Anita, and their team did the heavy lifting, and we really appreciate it. And I'm grateful for the county for collaborating and for their vote today. And so we're very appreciative of that. And so I definitely will be voting yes on this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very appreciative of it as well. Really proud that we are, as a region, once again coming together and working to the benefit of all of us. And I think, so there's kind of an unsaid element to this at this moment, which is this transportation revenue measure is so incredibly important to the entirety of South Placer to solve our Highway 65 congestion issue. That when the other communities, Roseville, Rockland in particular, but others, heard that we might possibly have to put a sales tax measure up as well, given the contractual agreement we had with the county, the electeds of those communities stood up, went to the county and said, this is really important. You need to give Lincoln a path to be able to not place that on the ballot in competition with this transportation sales tax. So I think that political power for the benefit of the entire region was a big play in this as well. And I want to acknowledge that and recognize that.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I wasn't going to say it, but I'm glad you did. But I want to add to that we made it really clear. So again, this is very grateful that the county was collaborative, grateful for our partner cities in the county that stood up with us, and I used the word political navigation. I was going to say political muscle, but I didn't think that's correct. But that's kind of what it is. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I also want to say that it was very clear that this wasn't Lincoln made a bad choice and now we're out of money and we're going back to the county with our hands out. That's not what this was at all. And that's never been the case, right? The original agreement was renegotiating so we keep some of our own money so we can fund public safety for our residents. This was, we made a strategic choice to use the ARPA dollars, to use the tax sharing agreement, to hire our firefighters and some more police, knowing that we were going to go out for a sales tax measure, and our polling was very good for that, and our public safety staff was ready to hit the streets in March for that, right? And so we made the choice for the good of the region to take a step back, willing to renegotiate it. So this was not, oh, stupid Lincoln screwed up again, not at all. It was, we stepped forward for the benefit of the region, and the county was willing to partner with us. And so grateful for that. So
Well said.
yeah, thank you for saying that.
That was clearly identified and annotated in the board meeting by Supervisor Moore. Gore,
Gore.
Gore,
Yeah.
Supervisor Gore, saying exactly that. The other thing I'd point out is the raising, the changing, the elimination of the cap was very important. It doesn't mean really any more money at all. To anybody. The problem was we can't control how houses are sold. And we've run into this problem already where the cap hurt us. We lost about $500,000 or $200,000 because we ran into a cap because there was a 3-month period of time where a bunch of houses sold and got occupied. By taking the cap off, we have a limited number of homes, but we will get our share of the protection agreement on every one of those rather than missing some because they bought the wrong date. So that was, a significant, even with or without the increase of 30,000. It was a hard, not hard, it was a tense negotiation. Much easier this time than last time, because at least two of the parties on the side really understood it wasn't done Lincoln last.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm ecstatic.
And I should have mentioned them, but we should call them out. Supervisor Gore and Landon were the two that were the negotiating kind of emissaries. And today at the board meeting, both of them helped provide some sort of clarity and some history for their colleagues about how we got here, why we're here. So it's just very nice to have that happen. Very much appreciated, because I've always kind of believed that, on a county level, a county is only really as good or as nice as their communities within it. And if some of those communities are struggling to make ends meet, it's not good. They're an overlapping jurisdiction. I mean, we are Placer County too. And sometimes we forget that, I think. At least I do.
Anyway,
And when they voted on it today, it was a unanimous vote. And so that's, to me, another big deal.
That was good, yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Hello again, Byron Chapman, 12 Bridges area. Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. I too believe that the I want to call the arrangements that's here certainly is going to help Lincoln get where we need to get to. Our previous head engineer, Mr. Ray Leftwich, on several occasions while he was here, and he had made this comment, and every time he said it, I more and more bought into the idea. He said, if everything else in the city fails, he says, what's the one or two most things that you have to absolutely have? And my first thought was, well, police and fire. And he goes, boy, it's really close. He says, but can you run a city, or will anybody be here to be protected if you don't have water and sewage? And every time he said that, I kept thinking, really? And then all of a sudden, every once in a while I'd go, so if the water stopped flowing and you couldn't flush the tank, and could you imagine doing that for 2 days, let alone a week, a year, a month? Would you still even be in that building? And with that in mind, those four, the water, the sewer, the police department, fire department, those really are the four most important things that have to happen in this city. regardless of whatever else happens. If they don't happen, the rest of it falls apart. So I've read the information. I think it's terrific. Obviously, the idea about raising the cap and making what we can. But in addition to that, I think as most of us here will agree, time seems to get faster and faster every single day. I wake up in the morning and I'm 2 weeks into the future. And how in the world did I get here? What did I do in the last 2 weeks? And I think that happens to all of us. And looking at 28, 29, you know, that looks like it's a long way away. I guarantee you in a month and a half, we're going to be at 28 and 29. And with that in mind, I simply wanted to bring this point clear, is that we need to be thinking about what's the next plan. I don't want to be the downtrodden. If the tax doesn't, if we don't get what we're getting and taxes don't do what they do, just an idea, and maybe everybody else has already floated this idea, but it's one that came up to the eye. If we continue to have housing, hopefully we will. We're growing at a pretty good rate. As long as we do that, with the permit costs and fees for the housing that goes into us, I realize that that's going to raise the cost of the home for them to sell it. But at the same point, if we do that enough, maybe that's the amount that carries us over for those who come in and need that service. That will help pay for that, and we will at least be ahead of the game. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody online?
Yes, we do have a hand raised. Mr. Garabedian, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mike Garabedian again, Placer County tomorrow. Well, let's make no mistake about one thing. The city, Lincoln was heading towards a permanent solution to its police and fire funding with a sales tax measure. Isn't that what we were heading for? And now that has been delayed or substituted or put off because of a second effort to pass a transportation sales tax that may very well fail. I'm seriously concerned about that, because what is proposed will not solve the Highway 65 problems. Even if they widen it, it's not going to solve your problems at all, with tens of thousands of units proposed that would be cramming that. And besides the well-documented fact that adding lanes does not reduce suggestion. It's not going to help the city at all if they go ahead and get that sales tax and start widening 65 and the 80-65 interchange.
Mr. Garabedian.
It's Garabedian, and what are you interrupting my time for? I would like to finish my...
I would like you to speak to the object, to the item, which is...
Sir, would you mind not taking my time? Would you mind not taking my time so I can finish my point? I'm not here to speak for you. I'm here to speak for what is a fact, that the highway improvements in that measure are not going to relieve the congestion. They are going to leave Lincoln in a traffic jam position. And it's a mistake. It's happened. If it goes on the ballot, you are not going to have a definite solution to the funding problem. And I think that's the key point is it's regrettable that you have, because of this measure that has defeated before, now is going to may go on the ballot. It looks very much like it's going to go on the ballot. And if it passes, that's not going to be a good either, because it's just not going to give you what you should be getting, a permanent solution by the city to that problem, and making yourself dependent on the goodwill of the county to help you out. You know, how the heck is Lincoln going to get itself in a position where it isn't dependent on the county taking advantage of it in these negotiations, whether it's on annexations, which happens, which they really run the course on the agreements made around annexations too. And so the answer is some kind of transportation solution that will work. And you know, Some people might say moratorium on development. Well, it's going to come, obviously. So I don't know what the solution is, but this is not it. But thanks for a chance to say my piece.
Relevant or not. Thank you. Any other? people
No,
online?
no other hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay, bring it back up for discussion or vote.
I move to adopt resolution 2024-076, authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the limited term property tax increment agreement between the county and Lincoln.
I second.
A motion and second.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yeah.
And Mayor Carlskin?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is city manager reports.
Thank you. Just three really quick items. I want to touch just really quickly on the news story about our crime statistics and just provide a teeny bit of perspective on that, because the chief and I were away at a training, and when that came through, we had a lot of time to talk about it. And it's funny because there's a saying in police work that you live by the stats and you also die by them. You can have, in a community like Lincoln that has a pretty good low crime rate, violent crime rate, when it's as low as ours is, you get a handful of unfortunate situations over the course of the next year, and then all of a sudden you drop to 14 or 23 or whatever number. And so we try to sort of temper, although it's good news, temper that with the reality that this is information that's kind of mined from probably mostly FBI crime data. And what is more useful, I think, than rankings is to identify that when you sit in the top couple percent of 430 plus cities in California, 482, it's a good indicator of quality of life and cultural sort of adherence to the rule of law. And I think that's really powerful. But aside from that, it also shows that a lot of the work that the chiefs discussed today and investments that we've made in force multiplying his department put us in a position where hopefully the word roughly is that if you're going to commit crime, probably not a great idea to do it in Lincoln. So just a thought there. Second is I just wanted to make a quick announcement because I'm super excited and I'm very proud to announce, just so everybody knows, that we did a competitive recruitment internally for assistant city manager. It took me actually quite a bit longer than I thought it was going to get to a decision point. But last Tuesday, I appointed Nita Racker, our finance director, as assistant city manager. And so that was effective immediately. And she is going to retain her finance director duties, at least probably for the next year to year and a half, where we sort of assess some needs in finance and get an idea about this next steps forward in that department. And she's in the midst of a lot of very complex software integration we don't want to pull her from, although she'd probably like to be pulled from it. But she has a quick fun fact about Nita. I actually interviewed Nita for her position before I had taken office as the city manager in Lincoln, because it was right about the transition period. And Mark Scott, who was leaving, said, you really should make this decision. And Nita was a little bit standoffish with me in the interview. And, but unequivocally, she was the most qualified candidate. And within about a month or two, she was running so fast to clean up a whole host of issues that there just was no question that she was going to be a very valuable person here. And so I'm very excited for her to take over this new role and get to use her on some things that are not necessarily finance related and bring her skills to that. So big congrats to her because it's a big deal.
Congratulations.
And finally, just wanted to give a quick shout out that if you couldn't make Saturday's pickleball ribbon cutting, I went. I honestly thought there was going to be like 20 people there. And there was like, I don't know, a couple hundred people probably. tons of vendors. I didn't realize there were so many pickleball vendors, but there's tons of them. And a lot of people having a great time. And our mayor gave what I think is the closest to an emotional speech that I've ever heard him give. So it was pretty great. And
Yeah, right.
so if you are interested in a new sport, why don't you go check it out? The courts look beautiful and be a lot of fun. So thanks very much.
Any council person have council initiated business, said Dr. Platt? No?
I don't have any business, no.
Committee report?
Do you have any? I have one. The Placer County Economic Development Committee met last week, and one of the things we were working on last year or, last several months was we formed what they call tiger teams, and we separated out into, one was on the CHIPS Act, one was on the SALC, one was workforce housing and whatever, and then they didn't ever really seem to get off the ground because what we just talked about last week was that, the SALT grant came in and they're already working on that. The CHIPS Act thing is like, there's really nothing that this committee could do to, do anything to further that and whatever. So what we decided as a group that what we're going to focus on in the coming months was helping small businesses in different ways, and small businesses meaning not chains, not national, obviously, but small mom and pop businesses in our county and in our cities, helping them to be successful, helping them with marketing, that kind of thing. And so we'll see how that goes, but we're kind of just trying to get focused on what we actually want to work on. So
they're following our lead.
they're following our lead, yes.
Any other committee reports?
Yeah, I've got a couple very quickly. So last Thursday, I attended the SACOG Board of Directors meeting. There were no items on the agenda that directly related, no action items on the agenda that directly related to Lincoln. However, there are now ongoing discussions and decisions about the new version of Blueprint moving forward and how all of our communities grow in the future, bound by the demand for greenhouse gas reduction of 19% coming down from the state, the pressure to reduce vehicle miles traveled, all the rest of that. Really important decisions being made. There's an alternative offered up by some of the bigger cities that suggested, well, maybe we should consolidate some of this growth within the larger cities and, reduce it in the outlying greenfield areas. The larger cities lean towards infill development, which is really expensive. So as we're all going for housing affordability, it's not going to be infill. It's going to be out in the greenfield areas. The important element of that discussion that's not really catching on yet is we have all been given our RENA assignments. If they consolidate the growth over the next 20 years, more in the urban cores, it doesn't take away the RENA requirement. We still have to zone for it. We still have to make every effort to build it, but it would be outside of the Blueprint plan and therefore a much more difficult process to go through. So it's really important that we all track this. And essentially it's the existing plan and the framework of the newest plan is really just taking all of the general plans within the region, putting them into this plan realistically and trying to blend that with the market elements moving forward. I think that's the best approach, this last minute alternative of maybe we need to reduce some of that growth in certain areas and consolidate it. I get it from a regional perspective, but I think ultimately without some adjustments to RENA and some other dollars along the way, I think it's a mistake. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about that as we move forward. Yesterday was the mega regions legislative day. Just as a reminder, the mega region was formed of a 9-county region, including the Bay Area and the 6 SACOG counties. So the attempt there is to create a list of 12 priority projects for that entire mega region and then pursue those on the state and federal level with the backing of all 9 counties in support of that. The only element on that list right now for our area is seeking funds beyond the Phase 1 funds that we already have for the third track project into Roseville. We've got all that Phase 1 monies lined up, so that'll get us to 3 round trips a day into Sacramento and the Bay Area beyond. And so now the move is to seek the Phase 2 funding that would eventually get us to 10 round trips between Roseville, Sacramento, and the Bay Area and beyond. So that work continues to be done. I would expect to see if the transportation sales tax measure passes, I would expect to see the 8065 interchange to hit that list and be very, very high on that list. That would probably happen next year. And then the last thing is I've got PCTPA and Sparta tomorrow, and I'll report out on that next time.
Mayor, I did forget one thing. The WAPMA board, we did hire a general manager. And yeah, and I'm very pleased about it. This person is going to be great. I don't think we could say who it is yet because he still has to handle things on his end. But staff has been notified and I think he'll be a great fit. And we're very excited and we're looking at target date starting June 17th, I believe. Yeah, yeah, going to be great.
So when you can, I'd like to see the background of that individual.
Yeah, yes, yep. Be happy to do
great.
that, yeah.
Thank you.
Next is information items.
I have one thing. And so I know that we don't make personal things are not council information, but it's kind of half and half. So I wanted to invite everybody to the Placer County Law Enforcement Chaplain Academy graduation Friday, May 10th at 6:30. It's going to be held at Rockland Police Department because I will be graduating from the academy and I was chosen class speaker. So anybody who wants to come can come. I mean, the class was only 6 of us, but I'm very excited to be graduating from the academy and then I'll start field training and then I'll hopefully be a chaplain. So thanks.
Cool.
Yeah.
No other information items. Well, then I guess I'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, staff.